Hey, you're listening to the Smoke Meat Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Pittman. Smoke Meat's brought to you by Joe's Underground at the corner of 8th and Broad in Augusta, Georgia, in the bottom of the Lamar Building. Such a great place to go. You meet new friends every time you go in, and you get to hang out with your old ones. They always make you feel like family when you go in. Go see Jeremy and the gang at Joe's Underground at the corner of 8th and Broad in the bottom of the Lamar Building in Augusta, Georgia. Yeah, today I have got rock, country, gospel, you name it, royalty with me. I'm talking about Mr. Leland Sklar. That's right, it is easier to name the people he hasn't played on their albums and toured with than it is to name the people. He's been on over 2,700 albums, been on countless tours. Some of my favorite people he's been with, Phil Collins, he's been with the Doors, he's been with James Taylor, Linda Ronstadt, the Oak Ridge Boys. He's even been with Second Chapter of Acts. So we're going to have a great time today, man. I mean to tell you, I'm pumped about this interview, and we're going to just get this thing kicked off here on Smoked Meat. Hey, so how the hell are you today, Mr. Leland?
I am completely adequate.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, it's a bit nuts out here in California because of the fires.
Yeah.
We're really dealing. I got up this morning to walk my dogs, and it must have felt a little bit like what it felt like after Mount St. Helens blew its top, because it was like 8:15 in the morning, and it was dark out. People were still driving with their headlights on, and it's pretty insane. There really a lot of grit in the air. My black pickup truck looked gray.
Oh, man.
The amount of ash on it, and I'm not even close to the fires.
Yeah, I don't envy the guys fighting those. I've fought woods fires before, not nearly on that scale, and they suck. I couldn't imagine being out in that. God bless every one of them.
Oh, absolutely, man. You think of these people, man, just, they probably got at least 80 pounds of, stuff on them.
Oh, yeah.
And climbing through this incredible terrain in the mountains. And it's been so hot here. I mean, it was like 113 where I live the other day. And so you add that to the heat generated by a fire with all that stuff, man. These people must lose about 50 pounds a day just in liquid out of their bodies from sweat. I mean, it's unbelievable. To me, they're so heroic. It's there's something to behold.
Yeah, they got my hats off to them.
Yeah.
Like I say, I've done it on a small scale, and it was horrible. I couldn't imagine just, okay, here we go. We're in the middle of nowhere, huge fire all around you. Save it or put it out or die. And that was worst camping trip ever.
Exactly.
Oh, man. But yeah, I told you before we started, I've done a little bit of research here and there, and man, you have played with everybody. I think the pandemic happened just so the Cosmos could make it where you went home for 10 minutes. I'm pretty sure, because you've been touring since like 71, hadn't you?
70 was kind of when I started. So, it's, and it's been solid. I mean, there hasn't been one year where I haven't been on the road. And this year we snuck a bit in just before the pandemic hit, because I'm in a new band. It's a new old band. We've got this band, The Immediate Family, but it's an offshoot of the Section, which was the original band with James Taylor. And but at in February we did a Rock Legends cruise that went from Fort Lauderdale to Grand Cayman, and it was like the last thing that happened before everything shut down. So at least we got to sneak that in. But the minute all that went down, a solid year's worth of work just evaporated like a fart in the wind.
Oh, man, that sucks so bad.
It's scary. It's scary for all, well, it's a scary time for so many people. But in terms of the music business, there's no telling, because, it's like with, most schools, the minute they have budgetary problems, the first thing they do is they cut music programs and stuff, and you're like then the last thing to be, recommissioned. So when I look at like all the, the stuff that's going on in the country, kind of is as important as music is to everybody's daily life, and it's really the heart blood. of our world as human beings is the arts.
Yeah.
And the idea that, so many clubs now are on the verge of collapse because, their rent still has to be paid, but they can't put on any, there's, no venues for anything. So
Yeah.
it's a scary time, and I really feel for all the musicians and artists out there that are just so hungry to be performing and playing and can't at this point.
Yeah. I watched the show the other night where you were on there with, Scott and, Perkins and everybody talking about the Save the Stages thing. And,
Yeah, yeah,
people
that
don't
was really
realize that it's not just artists, it's the guys who set up those stages, the lighting guys, the sound guys. Hell, it's the guys who sell popcorn at these things.
absolutely. I mean, it's like eating an artichoke or peeling an onion, man. There's so many layers to this
Yeah.
business, and most people, it's like you see a movie, and it could be a movie with like four characters, and then yet the credits roll, and there's like 300 people,
Yeah.
names going by. The depth of involvement in all of this is so it's so incredible, and most of those people that are on that underside of it, they're not making a ton of dough. They're, a lot of them are living, gig to gig,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden to have it disappear like that is really catastrophic.
Yeah. Well, anything that I can do for that, y'all let me know because I'll promote whatever I need to.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, because I just hooked up with Scott. He hit me to the Save Our Stages,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do all I can with those guys to, try. It sounds like they've got some good inroads going within the political arena that's bipartisan. So, maybe they can send some money to help that rather than just sending all the money to the guys who absolutely don't need the money but are happy to take it.
Yeah.
Let's save these venues so that when things do open up, people can go out and have a nice evening of some food and some music, and be able to chill and enjoy their lives again instead of being hunkered down.
Yeah.
So we'll see, man. Hoping for the best. My fingers are crossed for a better future. Otherwise, why even be here?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm ready for this thing to be done because
Uh,
not only do I get to quarantine, I still get to work in it. So
yeah,
I'm lucky in the fact I haven't missed a check, but at the same time, I haven't missed a check because I'm elbow deep in it.
yeah,
So that sucks, but it is what it is.
yeah. I agree. I agree. Yeah, I mean, for me, basically, it's my income
Yeah,
ended
yeah,
in March, and I'm just, I'm doing things that are bringing in a little bit of dough. But even like one of the gigs I was supposed to do in May, they moved it to November, then canceled it, moved it to February, and now it's March of 22 is when it's a big, huge thing in Switzerland. And so we just don't know. Everybody's, just kind of living day by day and seeing where this leads us, because there is no way of knowing. And every time they try to open up anything, people act so stupid and irresponsible that it's like one step forward and three steps back. And so it's hard to tell when this is actually going to, start drawing, becoming safe again, because every time people do anything, the numbers start to spike again. So this thing is
yeah,
still virulent and active,
yeah,
and it should be. And I have enough people I know that have died or hospitalized that I don't take this lightly at all. And I just hope for the best. I hate the idea of all the suffering that this has caused.
yeah. I do stand up, and we've got a lot of venues that do that are opening it here in Atlanta. And as bad as I want to get back on stage, I'm not getting back on stage yet because, like I
No,
say, this people are getting stupid. And if we just did what we were supposed to do, what we were taught in damn kindergarten:
yeah,
wash your hands, stay out of my face, stay clean, don't sneeze on people. This shit would
yeah.
go away.
Yeah, but people seem to think it's gotten painted as like, it's an affront to your masculinity and all this. But I'm in the middle of doing an album with a guy named Brett McKenzie, and Brett is half of the team that of Flight of the Concords out of New Zealand. And I talked to him about it, and granted, New Zealand's a small country, but he said, man, the minute this hit, the prime minister shut everything down. They immediately put in all kinds of things, social distancing, masks, and everything.
Yeah.
And he said, within a short period of time, pretty much, they're really living a normal life again. He says there are cases that pop up, but they've monitored so carefully that as soon as something starts to happen, they can localize it and deal with it.
Yeah.
And but here it's just total chaos every day, and nobody knows what the hell they're doing. So I don't know for us when the end's going to be. And then when you see all the countries that are refusing U.S. passports now,
yeah,
and most of those countries is where I was supposed to be touring. So even if this is over, I can't go there until they lift the ban on that passport.
Yeah.
So it's nuts, man. It is just nuts. It's like we went through a wormhole into some weird alternate universe.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing I love about Scott. Talking to him, he's one of the folks that's looking forward and trying to figure out new ways to get music out there and for artists to still be able to earn because
yeah, exactly. Well, Scott's
he's got
always
some awesome
been that
ways.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, back to the new NBC days with Toto, working with them. I mean, he's always been at the forefront of technology. One of the best things I ever did. And so people know it's Scott Page that we're talking about. And Scott Page played saxophone in Pink Floyd and all kinds of stuff. I mean, the guy's been a great musician. His dad was like one of the finest players around, was in Lawrence Welk's band and all kinds of stuff. But Scott, he's always been like at the front end of technology. But one of the things we did years ago that was really cool, but it was way ahead of its time, was we did a kind of a teaser for a show that they were going to do called The Rock and Roll Kitchen. And the essence of the show was an artist would come on. They would play with the house band, which was like the Tower of Power horn section. It was Jim Keltner on drums and myself on bass, Kenny Lewis on guitar. It was, oh God, who else was in it? There was a bunch of guys. It was great. And then the person would cook their favorite meal.
Nice.
And it was great. I mean, it had all these different people. We did a bunch of the shows, but at that time, there was no, Food Network or any of those things. So I think like Kraft Cheese, I think, was like interested for a moment in maybe doing something. But now would be a perfect time for that show. If they ever want to bring it back, because there's such a great format with the Food Network to do something like that. But that's Scotty, man. He's been there since day one, pushing out of the envelope and out of the box for technology. And it's guys like him that'll help move this forward from the kind of quagmire we find ourselves in.
Yeah, because I know we talked a little bit, and I feel like the people who y'all basically scored my life. I know that's cliche and it sounds so cheesy, but I can't remember what I did 2 weeks ago almost. But you can name a song, and I can tell you what I was doing the first time I heard that song 40 years ago.
See, there's those certain things like that touch you in a really primal place. I was kind of equated to, like, you could be somewhere and you smell like a clover. And maybe that clover was outside of the house you lived in when you were 8 years old.
Yeah.
And as soon as you smell that, for even for a couple of seconds, your mind goes right back to when you were a little kid. And there's this olfactory thing that happens to you. And music can do the same thing. And that's what I've always loved about it, is it represents births and deaths and marriage and divorce and graduation. And, it's benchmarks in everybody's life. And I'm exactly the same. I mean, if I hear the first Vanilla Fudge record, I know exactly where I was the night I heard that the first time and what an impact it had on me. So I totally dig what you're saying.
Yeah. I think music heals. 5 years ago, I had 2 strokes. And
Wow.
yeah, it didn't get me physically, but it scrambled my eggs really well. It gave me a horrible
Uh-huh.
stutter. And I don't know if you know him. Do you know a guitarist out of Texas named Monty Montgomery?
I've heard his name, but I don't know him.
This cat does a version of Romeo and Juliet. He does it on an acoustic electric Alvarez. And the first time I heard it, he was the only guitar on stage. And at one point, it sounds like three people are playing, and he's playing live.
Wow.
And I was out in my cook shack, and it was about a month after I had the strokes. You couldn't understand nothing I said. And I was out there cleaning guns, listening to metal as loud as I could, just getting away from everything. And I decided I wanted to hear that song. So I downloaded it and played it. And before I realized I was singing it perfectly.
Wow.
And I did it
Wow.
again. I did it about 4 times. And my wife was out in our yard walking. We lived out in the country. And I waved her over real frantically. She thought something was wrong. And I got to give her the first clear "I love you" she had in 4 months.
Wow. That's
And that
unbelievable.
was so cool. And it was because of the song. And I actually let him know. And he called me. And I let him know he made a difference. And that was really cool to be able to do that.
That's fabulous because, I mean, we all know that the music we do touches people, but when it really becomes that tangible, it's deep. It's a real profound moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I was looking on the discography here and saw where you did But Serious Hits Live.
Yeah.
And, I remember when I was younger, I lived down in South Georgia with my sister and brother-in-law helping out with him because he was bedridden, had an illness. And they each had a computer, and hers was an old 486. I mean, this thing ran the original Windows. It was old.
Yeah.
But I would stay up at night, and one of the CDs she had was that CD.
Oh,
And
wow.
I can sing this thing word for word. And when I saw you had played on it, I'm like, oh, no way in hell, no way. And I started watching videos, and sure enough, there's the beard, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm getting to talk to this guy. And
Yeah.
the songs on that take me back to then. And it's just the feeling I got when I listened to them then, it was one of my escapes. And it was awesome.
See, that's what's great. I mean, that's really, it's like when we do these shows, you do these shows to give people an opportunity just to step away from, daily routine and just be able to kind of, you know, transcend time, just sit there and your memories come, flooding back to you of where you were when you heard things and the impact, like for you, that it had because of where you were. And so, that's it to me. It's one of the things that makes this so inspiring. And I've had people say to me, like, don't you get tired of playing these songs, like, Fire and Rain? I mean, how many thousands of times over the 20 years I was with James Taylor did I play Fire and Rain? And I go, I never got tired of it.
So
I
when
said, because there's, I would always think somewhere in the audience tonight, there's somebody hearing this for the first time.
yeah,
And you make it special for that person. And then it's special for everybody.
exactly. That is so awesome. And, another band I saw you played with, Second Chapter of Acts.
Oh, yeah. God, I
Yeah.
love them.
Yeah, I got to see them when I was in, I think, 10th or 11th grade. My youth minister took us up here to Atlanta to see them. And I remember seeing them. It was in the late 80s. I think you were done with them by then. But I had the privilege of getting to hear Matthew Ward's CD when he came out with it in, I think, 89 or 90, his solo album.
Yeah, Matt's like ridiculous. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
the three of them were amazing. Annie was such a fine pianist,
Yeah.
and I got to know them through Buck, her husband,
Mm-hmm.
who was a great engineer. And I did like Helen Reddy's "I Am Woman" with him and all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was producing, Second Chapter of Acts. So he said, "Would you want to play on one of the albums?" I said, "I'd love to. Are you kidding?" And then at one point they lived down in Texas, in East Texas, and I flew down there to work with them, and they built this amazing. It was like in the middle of the woods, and it was like a giant steel building and I mean, it had like, a lift up door that their tour bus could go in, and had a pit under it for working on the bus. And on one side was a studio, and there was a room dedicated to Annie's piano. So it was mic'd the way a real Steinway should be, not, blanketed over with mics stuffed in it, but it was opened and the mics were across the room. And on the other side, they had a couple of apartments in the place for guys that would come there, and then their place, and they had like a basketball court. I mean, it was like the most amazing thing. And then I think they moved up to, might have been Steamboat Springs, and I went up there and worked with them too. And they're a remarkable family. Their music, their spirit, the whole aspect of them is something quite special. I really love those people.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite songs with her piano part in it was Nightlight, just the way she played that. 'Cause it's just simple, but it's just, man, it touches you.
Yeah, simple is good.
Yeah.
Things don't have to be complicated to be good. It makes me crazy every time I flip on YouTube, and I start looking at all the bass players that post their videos of themselves, and everybody's just like flailing away. And every once in a while I think, man, I'd love to see somebody post playing a song and not just something you would do at the NAMM show. Just really, show us how you create a part. And it can, like when I would work with Reba McEntire or any of those country artists like that, it was always those songs that were just whole notes and half notes, but man, they touched you so deeply. And you really had to be on top of your game to make those notes count.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk about simple, I think old Steve Miller, Keep On Rocking Me. The guitar and the bass lines in that song, just steady, but it's so smooth, and man, I love it. That speaks to me. It just gives me a feeling that no other song will.
That's great. That's exactly what you want out of your music.
Yeah.
And it can be that, completely insane music too. I mean, it could be, everything from Zappa to Mahavishnu Orchestra. I mean, you name it. It could be this super intense prog rock or any. If that's what the music demands, then great. You do it, and it touches people in the same way that the gentlest ballad can do it.
Yeah.
But to me, to get into the actual music side of things, for me, everything stems from and is predicated by the song. You don't take on a song to impose yourself on it, to show off your chops or anything. You listen to the song and you respond to what the song needs from you. And if all it needs is some whole notes and half notes, make them the best you've ever played them.
Very cool.
I mean, it's as simple as that. But the song really it defines everything to me. That's why I spent the past 50 years just performing songs, and I love it. I just absolutely love doing it.
I can definitely tell. And what's funny, watching the videos I've been watching, the live stuff, I've noticed one thing about bass players. All of y'all have that same look when you're playing. I can't really describe just the bass player look, except for the guy that plays with Metallica. He's kind of very mobile.
I know Robert's a good friend of mine. Yeah, Robert,
he is awesome.
He's I love him. He's great, and he is he eats that instrument alive with those guys.
Yeah, he is a beast.
Yeah, he's great. I love him very much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, most bass players, you're pretty much. It's like when I've been on the road with all kinds of different artists, from Lyle Lovett to Toto to Phil James or Jackson or any of these people. A lot of times they're all just like goofing around and having fun, and then they come in the dressing room and I'm sitting there with headphones on working on songs, and they go, "How come you're like always doing that?" I said, "Because there's only one guy on stage that has to know the downbeat, and that's me." I said, "The drums are just hitting an atonal, for the most part, instrument. So, just hit something and you're going to be there. It may not be the right part, but nobody will know. They could just think you're improvising." The guitar player, keyboard players, any of them, they can wait, a bit of a beat to kind of figure out what's going on if they don't know. But I said, bass players got to be there every time. So I said, I need to know this stuff inside out. So I put in the hours, and really, I want to know the stuff so well that I never have to think about it the minute I walk out on stage, that it's at that point just, I'm just enjoying the moment and not thinking about the moment,
Yeah.
but living the moment. And so, that's, I think, part of a lot of guys. I think a lot of bass players carry that responsibility when they hit the stage. So they get into a different zone than a lot of the other people up there.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's funny. I play the guitar a little bit. I do what basically I chicken pick. It's about all I can do.
Uh-huh.
And, cause I've got really big hands. I'm a big dude. I'm 5'10". I'm almost 300 pounds. And, I was at the pawn shop one day just kind of looking around and I saw a bass. I'm like, big fingers, forced. I can play the hell out of a bass, I'll bet. Yeah, wrong. Less strings does not mean easy to play at all.
Yeah.
I think I traded it back to the pawn shop like 2 weeks later.
That's great. I remember seeing I remember when I went and saw Albert Collins play, and he was a big dude, and his fingers, they all looked like knockwursts or kielbasa's. I mean, he had the biggest, yet he was playing the most beautiful blues guitar. And I would sit there going, how the hell can this guy have that finesse with these giant, like Smithfield hams on the ends of his arms? It's like, man, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But he did it. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. So I basically stick to my voice and the stereo. That's the two things I play. And I don't sing, 'cause when I sing in the shower, the water quits running. Oh, man. But yeah, I love getting on stage, like you're saying, just getting in that zone, because that's kind of your reward for all the hard work. You can get up there and everybody has bad shows and you're just not really phoning it in, but it's not the best show you've done. But, I'll have times when I get on there, and this has actually started happening in the last couple of years, where I'll just get on a little roll and get in my groove, and I don't actually hear laughter. I can look out and I see people laughing, but I'm just so far into my zone, I just don't hear anything except for what I'm putting out there. And that is such an awesome feeling.
Yeah, it's magic.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, some of the best shows I've ever played were sound checks.
Mm-hmm.
We would get in and there was no responsibility. We were just on stage having fun. There was nobody judging us from an audience or anything like that. And we would do it, and we would walk away, and we would just go, man, I hope the show's that good. It's because, we got completely into the zone and kind of blew our wad in a way doing the sound check. But, the shows would always work. It's just, sometimes you get that moment where everything is just in such sync with each other, and you just go, you can feel it. It becomes like visceral. It's in your gut.
Yeah.
And I love it. I mean, that is the magic.
Yeah, definitely. And, I'd like to say I don't get on stage just for me, because, I get up there for me because I dig it. It's almost like a drug. But when you get up there and the audience is right there with you, and that's where they want to be, they're not worried about their phones. They're not worried about this or that. They're just, boom, y'all are right there together.
Exactly.
There's no feeling like it. But, oh, yeah.
It's heaven. It's heaven, man.
It is. It is. And, man, the tours and stuff, I bet you've got one hellacious T-shirt collection. Just the tours you've been on.
I hardly ever collected any of them. It's one of those things that, when you're in the middle of it, it's just everything starts piling up. And, like so many times, like at the end of a tour, they would give you a bunch of swag with all kinds of, and I would always find somebody that looked like they would really love the stuff. And I would always just give it to them, because it's just, for me, I've got my black and my blue T-shirts that I buy at the Gap, and that's pretty much it for me. So the thing I've got a ton of is laminates.
Oh, man.
Just a wall covered with those, and that's kind of fun, just to reminisce things from everything from old, the big old venues, the summer sheds, that are gone now, to being on the BBC, all these things. It's really fun once in a while just to kind of drift through the pile of laminates and have memories of great moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I did radio in Augusta and we would do shows, we wouldn't really have laminates. We had, it was back in the day, they had like almost like cloth stickers that only we had.
Yeah.
And I've got, some of those that I'll forget about them, and once in a while I run across them and go, damn, that's cool. I remember that show.
Yep.
That was so much fun because that was one of my first times ever getting to meet anybody that had been famous, And here I was getting to interview them, and of course I had to do the radio interview. So tell me about your song.
Yeah.
But it was still so cool, and it was funny. Martina McBride actually made me speechless. I got within 10 feet of her. I couldn't walk, and I could not speak. My program director laughed his ass off at me. Dude, those eyes, they hypnotize me every time.
Martina's fabulous.
Yeah.
And she's pretty special.
Yeah.
All those artists are Susie Bogus and all of them, Reba and Patty Loveless, KT Oslin, and I spent about 11 years going back and forth to Nashville and working on tons of records. And I really love being down there and working with them. And all the musicians were so great.
Yeah, I love KT Oslin. She seems like she would just be a barrel of fun.
Yeah. And one of the best singers and best songwriters.
Yeah. Hey, right now you mentioned the name, I think Come Next Monday. I think, what is the name of it? I can't think of it. Basically, the man walks in and says, wife, we need to talk. Let me tell you about my day. I can't think of the name of it. It's a serious song, but it's
blanking
wonderful. And it's like I say, just mentioning people just is throwing me all over the place. It's putting me back at WYSC in McRae, Georgia, back in 1990.
Oh, that's great.
A little tiny station. We called it $1 a holler because a 30-second spot was $1. And I could play anything I wanted to as long as it was country. And I remember playing Should Have Been a Cowboy when Toby Keith came out with it, all that older stuff. And I remember saying on the air, this guy's going places. And he might make it one day. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the real fun was when I would, get into the really traditional guys. I spent a lot of time with Merle Haggard and Willie and Waylon, all those guys. And, you'd get around that stuff and you listen to them sing and you just sit there and you go, this is really it.
Yeah.
And I love that. I mean, it's once in a while, like guys like Vince Gill will kind of call out country and go, you really have gone so pop, and you think back to like the guys that really were still holding on to it when I worked with George Strait and Randy Travis and those guys, and they were still kind of honoring more traditional country music.
Yeah. And, a little bit of that's starting to come back now, like Chris Stapleton.
Yeah.
A lot of the new stuff I don't like, but I'm an old country guy, and I like that they're coming back to that a little bit.
Yeah, it's good. It's nice to pay respect to the genre that you think you're in. It's there's a little of everything, but that whole area too where you are, I'm just suddenly thinking about like when we did in-store stuff at Peaches in Atlanta, and oh man, I just like that area is so great.
Yeah,
and it's so rich with music.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten to play the Tabernacle up here?
No, I've heard about it, but never got a chance to play there.
It is freaking beautiful in there. It is literally an old tabernacle.
Yeah.
And it is so beautiful. But, I'm from Augusta. Down there we had the Bell Auditorium. And then we got the James Browne Arena, which was the big thing down there.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a lot of really big concerts start coming till probably about 10 years ago. And they came for 5 or 6 years, and it's kind of slowed down now, But yeah,
it's tough. There's so many great spots in the country that so many of the big tours just never hit. They just hit all the main big cities.
Yeah,
and that's it. And I always loved them when we'd be on the road, like especially in the early days with James Taylor. We'd be in Lincoln, Nebraska, and Ames, Iowa, and just hitting all these smaller towns that the people are so appreciative. And one of the things that was cool with Phil was when we did the first Final Farewell tour in 2004, the whole essence of that tour at the beginning was to play places we had never played.
Mm-hmm.
And so we found ourselves in the Middle East. We were up in the Eastern Bloc. We were in Latvia and Estonia. And man, the people that came out to see the shows were so appreciative, because an act like Phil would normally have never been there.
Yeah.
And it was so inspiring and so exhilarating to do those shows. It wasn't like, as much as I love playing Paris and London and Berlin and New York and LA and all that, those people get shows all the time. But when you hit these areas that, man, they've hardly ever had a big show come through. And suddenly you come on and they can't, like we did, Phil did a press conference when we got to Istanbul, and he goes, "We're really here. We are really going to play," and stuff. Because even seeing us getting off the plane, they were still kind of in disbelief.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. Yeah, I feel, I literally, I mean, I do still pinch myself all the time at what a great run it's been, and to have been involved with so many great artists and experienced so many great places and audiences in the world, and have met so many cool people over the decades.
Yeah.
That it's really so frustrating now, because I was supposed to be out on the road all this year, and I miss it. I've done things that I think are really good for me, that I would have never gotten to had it not been. I would have been on the road and never done these things that I thought about for a long time.
Yeah.
So I've tried to, as the old, saying goes, I really wanted to make lemonade out of a lemon, and I'm working hard at it every day. I'm actually working harder during the pandemic than I would have had it not been here, because I'm focused on a bunch of stuff that's really requiring focus and attention from me, where in the studio or on the road, that stuff for me is like, it's not second nature, from the standpoint that I think I'm blasé about it, but that's my comfort zone. I know exactly what I'm doing. And now I'm in some areas that I'm learning and doing things I've never done before. So it's kind of exciting to have to teach this old dog new tricks.
Oh yeah, you're never too old to learn.
Nope.
It's like I feel you, because I'm doing a lot of recording right now and having to edit a lot, and I'm actually working on putting together a video channel. I've got one, but I want to do one where these interviews are video if the person wants to be on video, where I can do them live if need be. And
yeah, that would be great.
Yeah,
that would really be great. I've been doing like a lot of Zoom videos or Facebook Live and stuff like that, and it's really fun just to really connect visually with each other. And when you're saying things, you can really see, how somebody's thinking when you see it in their face.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm actually working on getting a sponsor for that. I've got a couple of people I've been talking to, and I don't do my sponsors the normal way. I've got one sponsor for this show, and it's a bar in Augusta called Joe's Underground.
Cool.
When I started the show, I thought about it, and I was talking to the owner one night, just hanging out down there, because I did some comedy there. And I said, Jeremy, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. And he said, what do you need? Never hesitated.
Wow, that's great.
He bought my first round of gear for me. And because of that, I don't do the pay by the click thing, because it's too easy to screw somebody up like that.
Yeah.
He's on every show I'll ever do. The intro to this show, I do about 30 seconds about Joe's Underground. And, I'm going to do
that's great. I mean, that's a wonderful symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, when I talk to him, he's like, you don't have to do that anymore. I'm like, dude, you believed in me before I believed in me. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And that the video channel is going to be the same way, because.
Well, it's a righteous thing to do.
Yeah,
everybody. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
When you treat it that way, and I think that's great. I'll tell you, man, if you get the video channel up and running, if you need some filler, I'm here for you.
Oh, dude, we will have a ball. We can definitely do that. But yeah, I've got characters that I do on my YouTube channel now. It's Brad's Comedy. It's all one word. I've got some jacked up characters, man. Oh, dude, I've got some great characters. I love eating hot stuff. And one of the things that I did when the pandemic started is I started an Amazon list, and I posted it. And it had all the hot food challenges, different hot sauces and all on it. I told everyone, if you order something, you can pick the character that I do and what I'm doing with them while I do this. And that has been definitely an interesting ride, to say the
Wow.
least.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah, a friend of
Yeah,
mine.
I love hot sauce too, man. I love hot stuff, man. That's very cool.
Oh yeah, a friend of mine actually ordered me the white chocolate challenge, which is a piece of white chocolate infused with like Pepper X and the Reapers, all those.
Yeah.
And he wanted me to do my clown, whose name is Murray. But Murray's not a normal clown. This is Murray's voice. And during Murray's first thing he did, I actually downed a fifth of bourbon in 10 minutes as Murray, which it was tea because if I drank like Murray, I would freaking die. But yeah, he wanted Murray to read the dirty parts of 50 Shades of Grey while he ate this piece of hot ass chocolate. And I did. Oh, dude, have you read that book?
No, I never read it.
Holy shit. I had not either. And when I sat down to do it, I just Googled 50 Shades of Grey dirty parts. Clicked on something. I saw paragraphs. I'm like, okay, I'm golden. Let's do this. So I eat the piece of chocolate, do my little thing, and I start to read, and I'm like, I have bitten off way more than I can chew because this is so bad. Murray's sitting there talking about his own personal Christian Grey flavored popsicle. I was like,
Oh
oh
wow.
shit, kill
Wow.
me now. But it was funny. People laughed. That's the important part.
Yeah, yeah. It's called entertainment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, man, I love hot stuff. I've got a bottle of sauce made with Pepper X.
Oh wow.
Waiting for me in Thompson, where I'm from. And I'm ready to get down there and get it because that is ridiculous. It'll be one of the hottest I've had.
Yeah, I've got the keyboard player that played with Brand X with Phil Collins, and he was on the No Jacket Required. J. Peter Robinson, who
Mm-hmm.
he left Phil in '90 because he was going to move into doing film score and stuff. He's another freak for hot sauces, and he had one bottle he found in England. And and you go by the Scoville units and all that for
Mm-hmm.
measuring the heat. And this was around 2 million Scoville units for this stuff. And he took out a toothpick and took a drop of this on the end of a toothpick and put it on my finger. And my finger immediately started to blister from it. And I went, shit. So we were working all day, and at one point I hadn't completely cleaned my finger, and I rubbed my eye. And man, I was in his front yard with a hose blasting on my face for about 10 minutes to diffuse this. Man, I thought I was going to go blind. It was like the most intense, and you kind of at that point, you go, what is the reason for this? This ain't going to make anything taste better. This is just there to blow your head off.
Oh, yeah.
I've never tasted anything that hot in my life.
Oh, man, I've got one that's hotter than that sitting next to me right here.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. It's Blair's Death Sauce, and I think it's 2.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah. The hottest one I've had was 9 million, and that one was ridiculous.
Oh, 9. Are you? Oh,
It was almost pure extract. It was bad. Oh man, I think I did read The Little Engine That Could while eating a lollipop with that stuff on. As my character
Wow.
went, you would dig Wayne. Wayne is the old 70s love guru.
Uh-huh.
He's sitting there in a Magnum P I shirt with his hamburger meat poking out, the chest hair. And he's got big red hair and a big old bushy red mustache. And this is Wayne's voice, baby. Wayne's all about the love. But yeah,
little Barry White in there.
yeah. Wayne had to read The Little Engine That Could, and let me tell you, The Little Engine couldn't. Oh, dude, that was the hottest shit I've ever had.
Wow.
But
And
yeah,
I played bass on Magnum PI.
oh yeah, I was going to ask you about that because me and the guy who actually helped get me through the Strokes, Blake Harris, and I've known him for 40 years, was actually the first friend I made when I moved to Thompson. We were both Magnum freaks. All the shows, the detective shows and cop shows from that generation. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I'm going to let him know, and that's going to just drive him insane.
No, it's great because I did all Mike Post. I had worked with Mike Post since 1967,
Oh
And when he
man.
started his TV run, I mean, I started with him on the Rockford Files,
Mm-hmm.
and then we did, Magnum and the A Team and Hill Street Blues, and all those shows. There
Mm-hmm.
were tons of them.
Simon and
Hunter,
Simon.
yeah, Simon Hunter, Quantum Leap, White Shadow. God, there were just, we were at it all the time. Yeah, L.A. Law, Hill Street Blues, all
Mm-hmm.
those shows, man. It was so much fun because the writing was so good, and especially those shows, the Magnums and Rockford, lots of chase sequences. So we had really long cues that were really fun to play, and
Mm-hmm.
those were good times.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, those just the music from all of those is. And I tell you what, some of my favorite Chase songs were though. Growing up, was the ones from the Dukes of Hazzard, the Chase songs.
Yeah,
But oh yeah, but yeah, back in the '80s, man, if it had Mike Post on it, it didn't matter what the show was; it was going to be a hit just because of the music.
yeah, yeah. No, he really, especially in the days with this when Pete Carpenter, his partner, was alive. Pete was a lot older than Mike, but they
Mm-hmm.
made an amazing team, and it was always great when they would get a new show and we get to start that. And that was steady work all the time. I mean, we
Yeah,
we were at it constantly in the studio with doing those shows, and it was fun because they would come down, and sometimes the people from the shows would come down and hang out. They wanted to see the recording sessions, and like Fred Dreyer from Hunter and Stephanie Kramer, they would come down and hang out. And
mm-hmm.
it was cool. It was really cool. Those were
Very
good
cool.
times.
Yeah, and it's awesome when you. My dad always said, and I've heard other people say it. If you're doing something you love, you never work a day in your life. And it sounds
Absolutely.
like you've never worked.
Well, I had real jobs, and that's why I was thrilled when music became my profession, because
Yeah.
I couldn't really see myself, even though I'm not degrading it, but I ran an offset printing press. I ended up being a arc welding swimming pool filters, and all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
over the years. But when music started to happen, I just went, man, and pinch myself again, man, go, thank you, man, that I got to do the thing that I love the most. It became my vocation rather than my avocation.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a wonderful thing, man.
Yeah,
And
it's a gift.
I tell you, I just want to know one thing I don't think I've heard anybody ask you, but I got to know. What instrument does the beard play? I know it plays something.
Well, it actually is more of a mute for the bass. Yeah, I can kind of lay it over the strings, and I sound like I have a flat wound string instead of a round wound.
Oh yeah, that beard is epic, man. I love the beard. I cannot grow one close to that.
I tell you, when it was 113 the other day out here, I was going, this is hard. It's like wearing like an R60 insulation around your head sometimes,
Oh
but it sure is fun, nice in winter.
yeah,
Everybody else is out there, complaining. I'm going, I'm comfortable. I'm fine. And it's safe. It saved me from having to buy business cards.
definitely.
And the stupid part was, at one point, my father had a printing business, and he kept saying, well, let me print you some cards. I go, no, I don't need them. It's fine. It's so stupid.
Oh man. Oh well, anytime you come down near Atlanta, you're going to be fed here because I do cook. I
Oh, God,
cook
I would
everything.
love it, man. I would love it.
Yeah. What's your favorite kind of meat?
Well, in the day, my problem is I stopped eating meat about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was eating, I was a super brisket freak. When brisket was done good, man, to me, that's still one of the best cuts.
Oh,
And then I was a rib fanatic. Every time I'd get to Memphis, I'd start hitting Rendezvous and all the different rib joints, and
oh yeah.
um, there's great stuff. But you'd find some of the greatest stuff in the weirdest places, man. We were on tour and we were driving down through Texas outside of Houston, and I think it was on a James Taylor tour, and we had a Jones for Indian food and saw an Indian restaurant along the highway. And went, well, I mean, how horrible could it be? We went in, it was probably the best Indian food we ever had.
Yeah,
Um,
I learned
it
that.
was, man,
Yeah. You remember on the old cop shows where the old grizzly veteran would take the young rookie into this place that just looked so nasty but had the best food in the world?
yeah, exactly.
There was a place like that in Augusta. Oddly enough, an old grizzly veteran took me in when I was just a young EMT, and it was called the Delta Sandwich Shop. It was behind a fancy French restaurant in the alley. And we walked in, and the guy called his burgers Perry Burgers. And I said, I want 2 Perry Burgers. And the guy just kind of giggled at me and looked at my partner. And he said, I'll bring you one. I said, no, I want 2 of them. He said, I'll bring you one. And that kind of pissed me off. I'm like, look, I'm grown.
Yeah.
I can eat 2. And he said, look, when you finish that one, if you want the other one, it'll be waiting. Trust me. And he brought this thing out here. This burger was the size of my head and just dripping with grease. And it was the most amazing damn burger I've ever had.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. Well, you never know. I remember we were on tour. It was another, we toured so much with James Taylor, but we were up in Connecticut, and there was a trucker who was, this was back in the days of CBs, and this guy's handle was Straight Job. And he was on the CB, and truckers were trying to talk. This guy would not give it up, and he's playing blues harmonica the whole time and talking to us. And finally, we said, "Look, we're going to jump off. We're going to go grab a bite to eat." And he said, "Where are you going?" We said, "Well, next exit, there's a Hojo there. We'll just jump in there." He said, "Don't go there. It's garbage." He said, "Follow me," because he was right in front of us. And he took us about 3 miles off the highway to this diner that was there. That was unbelievable. And we could not thank him enough. We hung out, had a great meal with him and stuff. But everything that we ordered was just like, first off, the portions were like the size of a Volkswagen. And, and it was just like one of those things where you go, man, if it had not been for this guy, we would have eaten some crappy meal at a Howard Johnson's.
Yeah.
But he took us to this amazing, little diner. And those, when you're touring on the road, man, so much of what you do is all based on the meals you've had. Like, people ask me about what was that gig like, and I go, well, I don't know, but man, we found this really great fried chicken joint. That was like,
Yeah.
and that's kind of like where your head goes with these things.
Yeah.
And it's like finding out, because we did this. I was in this band called Barefoot Servants, and it was still one of the best bands I've ever been in. It was like if you took Hendrix and ZZ and shit like that and rolled it all into one. That's what this band was. And we did a tour called the Southern Spirit Tour, and it was Marshall Tucker, 38 Special, the Thunderbirds, and the Outlaws, and we were the opening act for that.
Holy shit.
And but Marshall Tucker, the guys told us, they said, look, when you hit the highway, it said, for breakfast, go to Cracker Barrel. They said, because if you go to Cracker Barrel and you got an 8x10 of your band, you tell them you're a rock band, they'll comp your breakfast if you can sign a picture for them. And we went in, and lo and behold, we the next thing we did was we got a Cracker Barrel map and planned because we were on such a budget that we planned all of our drives so we could hit some Cracker Barrels and get some food. So,
Nice.
but that's the stuff. I don't remember any of the gigs practically, but I do remember, getting Cracker Barrel breakfasts and stuff. It was great.
Well, when you say you don't eat meat, now some people say that means strictly no meat. Do you eat fish and chicken and still, or?
I'll eat some chicken and some fish.
Okay,
it's
cool.
just red meat, and for the most part, it was really because I saw too many videos of factory farming the way it's done here.
Oh yeah.
And I just thought I can't do it anymore. But I really miss burgers. For me, I love a great burger. Like Rotiers in Nashville had great burgers. And
well, do you like venison?
Well, any kind of meat like that, I don't. But there's been some really good faux burgers. Because for me, like when I would eat a burger, it's like Capitol Records in Hollywood in the old days when we would record there across the street. I mean, they took the place out and made a parking lot. But there was this old Greek guy who had a burger stand across the street from Capitol Records. He baked all his own buns and grew all his lettuce and tomatoes and everything. Everything was like as good as it could be. and his meat was unbelievable. I don't know what cut he used to make his stuff, but when he would do the burger patty, it was no bigger than the slice of tomato or the onion. Everything was in proportion. And that's one of the things I love about a burger. It's like you could almost leave the meat off if you got a great onion and a great tomato and great lettuce and pickles. And for me, to me it becomes like a Dagwood sandwich. Just kind of enjoy the whole thing. So like when I have an Impossible Burger, it really does satisfy me because I'm putting other things that I love in there too. So it's not like I'm depending on that to be my new burger. But I miss it. Like when we got to Memphis, and you smell a good rib joint, man. It's really a challenge at that point.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you come out, what I'll do is I'll go to my house in Thompson. We've got a pond, and I will catch some fresh catfish.
Oh man!
Oh yeah, we will hook you up.
That sounds good.
Definitely.
Yeah, that sounds real good. And every once in a while, man, you find there was a joint. Well, actually, I'll tell you the best. It was so funny. The actor LeVar Burton. He was in Roots and all that stuff. I was at a function years ago, and he brought fried chicken with him. And I took one bite of this fried chicken, and I looked at him. I said, LeVar, man, where did you get this chicken? He goes, I made it. He says, it's my grandmother's recipe. And I looked at him. I said, this is by far the best fried chicken I ever ate in my life. And every time I see him, I go, dude, you've got to open a chicken joint. And I mean, he's never going to do it. But, it's always weird because you think how good, how much difference could there be in, fried chicken?
Oh, it's
and
a
then
lot.
When you and there's a lot, and you just kind of go, you get used to an average thing. And then all of a sudden somebody comes in with something that just takes your socks off. And you just go, wow, you just raised the bar a whole lot. And it's cool. It's cool. I love. It's one of the best things about touring to me always was having adventures, finding it's like I remember with James, we played in Germany, and we did a TV show in Baden-Baden, which is in the middle of the Black Forest region of Germany. And after the gig, the promoter said, "Let me take you guys for an amazing meal." And he took us up to a lodge that was like a small castle that was way up in the mountains. And I really wasn't that hungry. So I told the guy, I said, look, I'd really like just a really nice salad. This guy brought out a salad that was probably the best salad I've ever eaten in my life. It was a massive bowl of like the best of everything you could ever put in a salad. And I just sat there and I just went, this is unbelievable. And another experience I had was I toured for many, many years with a French artist named Veronique Sanson. And in the 70s, she was married to Stephen Stills, and that's when I met her the first time. But I toured through the 90s up into the early 2000s with her, and she's still like one of the biggest artists in French music history. But we were somewhere in a little tiny village in central France. And it was breakfast time, and she said, let me order you breakfast. I said, great. So this beautiful breakfast arrives, and it looked like a Spencer steak on it. I said, oh, man. And I took one bite, and I said, this is one of the best steaks I've ever eaten in my life. This is unbelievable. And she smiled and looked at me. She said, it's a mushroom. And it was a mushroom that can only be grown in this village area. There's something in the soil where this village is. They've tried to do them and it makes like a portobello, like nothing. It was as thick as a steak, and probably the size of like a deck of cards, a little bit thicker than a deck of cards. But I look at her and I said, if I lived here, I would eat this every day. It was just it was life changing. One of those things, and you can't get it anywhere else. It's like, those are the memories that that stick with you.
Oh, do you like scallops?
Oh, I love scallops.
Go somewhere and see if you can find some king oyster mushrooms. You can take those and cut them about 3/4 to an inch thick. and you can put them in a little bit of, hot oil, just like you would sear a scallop,
Yeah.
for about 30 seconds on each side, and then put a little bit of soy sauce on them to kind of sear it in. And the taste and texture, you cannot tell the difference between that and a scallop.
Oh man, for sure, I'm going to do
Yeah,
that.
they're amazing. If I get a good steak somewhere, I will always buy some of those too.
Wow.
Yeah, they're
That's
amazing.
great to know.
But oh
Wow.
yeah,
Now I'm starving.
I feel your pain. Well, Lee, I've had a ball talking to you, man. You know you're welcome on here anytime. I don't care
Well,
when or what.
I would love to come back, and if you get the video going, let's absolutely do it.
Outstanding. We definitely will.
We can have a clothing optional video and freak people out.
The one bad thing about the video is everybody tells me I've got the perfect face for radio.
Yeah, of course.
But oh yeah.
I have so little face showing that it really doesn't matter.
Oh man, I look in the mirror, my reflection ducks. But oh yeah.
Yeah, but we're still here, and that's the thing that matters.
You ain't got, like a friend of mine used to say, I didn't wake up with dirt in my mouth and fire around me, so it's a good day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's crazy times, and it's like it's the start of every blues tune. Woke up this morning. That's enough. That's a good song.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. But
Well, look at man, you take good care of yourself. You sound great, so I'm really glad that you came back from those strokes as good as you have, man. That's some scary stuff.
You ain't kidding. I'm blessed, man. I got lucky.
Yeah, you
Yep.
dodged the bullet.
Oh yeah.